welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are using some patterned paper to make a really quick background, and we are doing some paper pouncing. I recently purchased these paper pouncers from Amazon, have not used them yet, so today we're going to give them a whirl. I have some Paper Studio cardstock here. Those are loose panels that I'll do the paper pouncing on, and this is a top fold card base, and we are going to do some cutting on that in a minute. I have some black some black cardstock also. That's also from Paper Studio, as is the polka dot paper that you see off to the left. So those are my paper pouncers. That one is a little dirty. My daughter's been playing with it, but I haven't used those yet, and so I'm kind of excited to give them a whirl. Here's that pattern paper and that black cardstock I was talking about. All of that is from Paper Studio. We will trim that pattern paper down quite a bit just to get the background that we're using for today. This is the Altenew Blooming Bouquet stamp set. I'm going to use the die that says hello. I'm not going to use the stamp today, but that is an option you have. And then I'm going to use the coordinating dies for a few of the individual florals and some of the greenery. The colors I'm using to do my paper pouncing today, these are all from Simon Says Stamp, their Positively Saturated line, and I have the Bubblegum, Sweets, and Taffy. That's going to be for my florals. For my greenery, I'm using Tropic, TIDEPOOL, and AEGEAN. So we're going to jump right into the paper pouncing. So the first thing I did is I started off with this green panel for the leaves. I started off with my lightest color. I just wanted to see how these would work, what kind of effects you could get. I know I've seen Amy R. from Prairie Paper and Ink use the, I think they're Picket Fence Studios that has the paper pouncers. I've seen her use those quite a bit for her die cuts, but I think she's used them on the individual die cut themselves. I don't remember if I've seen her use it on like a full panel. She may have, and I just don't remember. But I wanted to try this. Again, I've never used these before. I'm just playing and just kind of seeing. So that was the TIDEPOOL. This is the Tropic, and the darkest is the AEGEAN. There are like harsh little circles where I initially apply the ink. That doesn't really bother me. I figure once I die cut everything out, some of that will be kind of masked by the fact that I die cut it. And that's something to know, is when you are doing a panel and you're not really particularly pleased with how it looks, just die cut it and you'll typically like it a whole lot better. So here you can see I'm not being careful to ink blend. I tried to like swirl it. It doesn't work to swirl, and it's not meant to swirl, so that's not surprising that it didn't work well. I did try to go back in with that lightest TIDEPOOL color. It doesn't really do much. Here you can see I'm trying to swirl it. It's not meant to swirl, it is meant to pounce. So this time I started with the darkest color and did that in 3 little spots, and then I'm kind of going in and filling in the open spaces with that darker. These colors, you can definitely see kind of those harsh little paper pounce circles. Again, I'm not trying to blend. I just want to get a saturated color down, and then when I lay my stamps down, I will be a little more choosy and particular on where I'm putting the die, and that'll give me more variation. So this is the card base, and this is the front of it, and all I'm doing is taking a long pair of scissors and making a long cut along it. That's all I'm doing. Then I have already cut this pattern paper down to 4 1/4, and I'm just going to lay this inside the card base and make a little notch with my fingernail, and then I'll take that notch to my paper trimmer and cut that off. To adhere that, I'm just going to use that tape runner that you see off to the side. I purchased that off of Amazon, and I'm going to glue that down flat so that this pattern paper peeks out from the card base when it's closed. I thought that was kind of a fun and interesting addition, and I really liked it. Here I'm just checking to see if I've got any paper hanging off, and I do a little bit, so I'm just going to take those same long scissors and trim that off. I'm going to take that Hello die from this particular stamp set, and I'm not going to use the stamp, but I am going to use this die, and I'm going to cut it 4 times from this black cardstock from Paper Studio, and then I'm going to layer it together. How I'm going to layer it together is I'm going to use the Simon Says Stamp MICRODOT sheets and just place those in, burnish them down with the back of my bone folder, and then attach them all together. I'm just going to leave one of them inside that sticky paper and then lay the other ones on top of it. Here you can see I've just taken one of those die cuts off and it has adhesive on the back. And I'm just going to layer it on top of one that is still stuck to the sheet. And I'm going to do that for all three of them. I'm going to use that one to continue to layer on top of one another. And then I'll snip this section off and set that aside. Now I've chosen a few of the leaves and their coordinating dies from that Blooming Bouquet stamp set from Altenew, and I'm going to use my VERSAFINE Onyx Black ink to stamp out probably, I think I do like 4 clusters of each of these leaves. Just so you know, these are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panels, and I stamped out 4 sets of each of these leaves. It was way too many leaves, but I never know. I'd rather have too many than not enough, so that I don't have to waste time going back and coloring them in. So I'm just going to go through, and not only for the leaves but for the florals, and I'm going to go through and randomly stamp out each of these using that same Onyx Black ink. Then I'm going to go and attach the dies to them. Here I've picked 2 of the single or individual flowers, the smaller and the larger, and I'm going to stamp those out. Again, trying to kind of see where I've got a lot of variation in this paper pounced background panel, and try to get me some variation in some of these flowers. And then I will do the same thing. I will attach these dies and cut everything out with my die cutting machine. Now everything's cut out, and I'm taking my Spectrum Noir clear glitter brush pen, and I am just brushing some of that glitter over this sentiment. I will go back and add some glossy accents to the top of that. You'll see in the photos that it's kind of cloudy, but once it dries, on top of that it is clear, and then you'll have the glitter kind of stuck behind it, so it'll be really pretty and very dimensional and shiny. Now what I've done is I've placed that sentiment. It's still on that sticker backer sheet, that dot runner sheet, and I am just using that as kind of a guide so I know where to place my florals. And I'm just going to sit here and fiddle for an exorbitant amount of time trying to get this arrangement like I like it. I have kind of temporarily shut that card base, that flap, so that it doesn't flap open while I'm trying to apply these images, these die cuts. And then once I'm happy with the design, I'm going to take some press and seal and form another hinge. This press and seal does not stick to my glass surface, so I'm going to bring in the magnets, not only to hold that quote-unquote hinge down, but also to hold my card base down so that doesn't shift as I work as well. So now I've applied some glue to the tops of those florals and where those florals kind of sit on top of one another, and I brought in some scrap cardstock just to stick under that so I didn't get any adhesive on my pattern paper. Then I'm going to carefully peel back that press and seal, and any bits that need to be tacked down further or that kind of fell off, I had a leaf fall off, I'm going to just take that same liquid glue and make sure I get everything stuck down right. Now it's time for that sentiment. I stuck that on, and I'm going to flip this card base over and burnish that down really well, just so that the sentiment does not fall off. If you're worried about it falling off, you can go ahead and add just a little bit of liquid glue behind it just to ensure that it doesn't fall off, but I didn't find that necessary. And then the final thing we're going to do is add some glossy accents over the top of the sentiment, and I also decided that these florals and leaves needed some sparkle, so I'm going to add some more of that Spectrum Noir clear glitter brush pen to the top of those. Once that's done, that is the card complete. I'll pair that with an envelope, and that is where you could write your sentiment so that no one sees it. And that is it. Thank you for spending time with me today. I appreciate you, and we will catch you next time. Bye!